Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, October 19th work session for the City Council of the City of Bellaire Beach. Would everyone rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Marv Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
He's muted. You're muted, Lynn.
Here.
There you go.
City Attorney Fred Riley.
Here.
And Councilmember Jody Shirley was unable to attend, and Vice Mayor Gunn has not yet arrived.
Okay. We'll note when he comes in, if he comes in later on. Okay?
Yes.
All right. I can see everyone except for Rita Swope. So if Rita wishes to speak, then let me know that you desire to speak, because I can't see a hand up or anything like that. We have 8 items on our agenda, last one ending with general business. So the first one is the discussion of the Communication Advisory Committee report. The City Council has the final report. We got that previously, and I note that Patty also gave us a copy at around 4:30 today. This agenda does not have names of the people who are bringing these things, so I don't know who to reference over here. So just go back to the city clerk and ask who is bringing this before us.
Mayor, these were things that the City Council needed to review at a work session. They were brought up at the last meeting, so they were just added to the agenda. We need to get some direction from the council going forward. Patty redid the based on, we got like 4 versions of the survey, and we just need to get some consensus from the council to move forward on the survey. We were going to mail it, put it online, let people fill it out different ways. And then there's some other things in the report that the committee recommended, click send, things of that nature that we need to start working on if we're moving forward with what they gave us.
Is someone going to walk us through the items one by one? I know Dave was on the committee, but is there someone who's going to kind of run us through this? I mean, that's a nice overview, but I'm not sure what. I'll open it up for discussion. I mean, I don't mind, but
the primary thing we want that the committee brought up was getting a survey out to get community response. So Patty sent the revised one out, an hour or so ago, but we'd like to get some consensus from the council to go ahead and move forward with this and set up the mailing to the residents.
Lynn, I'm reading that as we speak. So maybe, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look at it. I'm going to take a minute. I just got this.
Yeah.
So let me just look at it, and maybe everyone else can. I know Patty just sent it out at like 4:30. So.
Yeah, well, there were 4 versions of it put in the packet, and the committee said to somehow cull the versions, and Patty and I went through it, and this is kind of where we landed.
So basically, this is, I mean, if a citizen responds to this and puts their, it looks like email information, they have choice. They could put email, text, automated voicemail, call number. They could put, they can elect to do that, or then they could just say, no, we don't want to give you that information. We'll just go pick it up on the website or however we wish to do it. It's totally optional, and it'll replace, I guess, any list that we have now. Is that the idea?
Yes. Yeah. Because the current list is not a very good list.
Right.
And Dave, you want to weigh in on this since you were heavily involved in it?
No, it's pretty straightforward. If you would like to be contacted by the city, would you prefer email, text, phone call, or do you want to just go pick it up at your leisure? Maybe look on the sign, something like that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to be as accommodating as possible with the citizens, and give them options. If there's not a lot of interest in one area or another, we may not necessarily need to use that option. So the first step was to get this survey out and see how everyone wanted to receive messages. We've heard that they want better communication. That was the whole purpose of the committee, and basically you can provide them with information, but unless they absolutely want it, they're not going to ever have that information. So now what we've done is we've given them an opportunity to make it easier on themselves to receive that information. This is the first step. Once we have this information, then we can go forward. We've sort of discussed the click send, which it's very cost effective. Emails we're already doing. Part of that click send involves automated voice telephone calls, robocalls. Also, we have a Facebook page that's already enabled. I know we're not doing much with it, and it's strictly for one-way communication, but that's one way. And then we also have the Bellaire Beach website. So as far as the redundant forms of communication, if we find out people don't want to look on Facebook, well, maybe we'll turn it off and just rely on the website. And then, of course, finally is the message board, which I believe that's a topic that we should go ahead and cover tonight. I know that we're probably waiting on insurance to resolve their side of things, but we sort of touched on this at our last meeting about what we were going to do, and I think this is something we need to hash out because right now we don't have anything.
Marv?
I said this once before. The only thing I'd like to add to this list of email, text message, or whatever is a no response. No response means the city is not going to send you anything, meaning you don't want any. And if they don't want anything, why even bother mailing anything out? It's just a waste of time or money. That's what we're trying to do, is to get a list of people that are interested in the city affairs. But on the other hand, we've had problems before where the people say, well, I never got the information. If this form is sent to everybody with that notation in there, at least we won't hear any complaints about people not getting any information.
All right. Let Emerson know. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. My husband's leaving.
You're getting very excited about the topic there. Marv, I think that's a good idea. I have a question. Actually, it rose a question in my mind. If somebody, how often do we plan on taking this survey? And to what Marv had just said, I like the idea of saying, hey, don't bother me. I don't want anything. But, you go moving out of town, all right? And now the next person inherits your house and you're not going to be getting any information. Are we going to be able to track the new folks that move in and maybe get this survey to them? Because I would hate really for somebody to be uninformed, that moves into the town based on the election that their, predecessor made.
Well, we don't get, just so you know, the only way we would get that information is through updating the property appraiser. We do a code review. We know a house is selling, but we don't know who it's selling to. We don't get that information from the title company.
Well, could you then, you do know that it's selling, right? Because you do that code review to make sure there's no liens, right? That's pretty much standard process. So would it be possible that City Hall, when you get that, you make a note and then you send out one of these surveys, maybe a month later after the new person moves in, give them the option to elect in or out?
Right. That's not an issue. We could do that. Yeah, that's a small number of people.
Right. But I just don't want to see, because somebody could be here for 5 years and go, I didn't even know there was information coming out. And that's what the person before you elected Dave, I think it's fine, and add Marv's comment in, and if everybody else has any comments, but I think this is good to go out right now, and I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I'm fine with it.
Well, also to add to what you were discussing with Lynn just now, I see no reason at all why this shouldn't be a yearly event, that once a year we send this out and let's see if they update it or if new people add on to it. They may decide they don't want mobile and don't want to opt out, but don't know what to do, and we could certainly make those changes for them just to update the database. So that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, about the only things we adjusted on the form, we didn't figure we needed somebody to sign it. That was on sign and date it. That didn't matter to us. We just wanted to collect the information. I don't know. My only thought about putting the comment Marv made on it, that sounds like, hey, if I don't want your information now, don't bother me. I'm a little iffy on that thought. That's just my preference. But if people don't want to be contacted, they aren't going to fill the form out. That's pretty factual.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. I mean, there are plenty of I can ignore you methods up there. Basically, you can put a check on the website or the message board at City Hall, and that's pretty much I'm going to go get the information on my own. I don't need to tell you that I'm not interested. I think Lynn is right that's maybe it's just one of those things we don't really need, because at the end of the day, we're going to maintain the other items anyway. So I just don't want a phone call. I don't want a voicemail or a text message, and I don't want email. If one of those three or all of those three are not checked, well, there you go.
I'd like to go ahead and speak as well.
Sure.
I'll agree with City Manager Lynn Reeves and Councilmember Dave Gaddis's comments. I don't think that should be on there. They can figure out another method to get the information if they want, or fill out the survey, change their survey when they get it the next time, or go into the City Hall.
The other option is they just don't respond.
Hey,
Anyone
that's
else?
what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
This is work session. We don't normally ask for public comments, but I do note that there's a hand up from a Jeff. It's up to the council if we wish to undertake public comments. We've historically listened. Does anyone have an objection to having Jeff speak? Everybody's good? Okay, Patty, could you get Jeff brought in here? And he'll have to give his name and address, please.
Jeff?
There it is. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry, I hit that by mistake, so I don't really have my hand up and wasn't able to figure out how to take it off.
Okay, just click it again. There you're good. Okay, thank you. Did anybody else want to speak from the public? All right, then we'll close that. So I guess the consensus is to go forward with it. Lynn, Marv, you're okay with your comment not being on it?
Absolutely.
And
I just
go with
wanted
what
to see
Dave says,
the
basically.
consensus was generally across the board.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I guess we're good with that. Were there other
Okay.
issues with the on the communications that we need to resolve tonight?
No, I think this is the basically the first step. So that's what we're trying to resolve and get the consensus of the council so we can move forward with it.
Lynn, when will that go out? Approximately.
I'd say within the next month we'll send it out. I'll put a letter together as a cover letter just to say blah blah blah. Please fill us out and return it to us, and we'll put it up on the website so you have it. We'll notify the council the date of the mailing.
Okay. My only concern is that, we're coming up with Thanksgiving, the holidays and all of that stuff in another month, believe it or not. So just if people they get inundated, they get overwhelmed at the time. So, I mean, if there's a way we could maybe get it out before without, killing ourselves at headquarters here, that would probably be great. If not, then it goes out when it goes out.
Yeah, we've got to send it to the printer and get that back and get it set up for mailing. So
great. These will be postpaid for them to return postpaid?
We can do that. There was money set aside in the budget, or we can, we weren't intending to do that.
I'm just bringing it up. You might get a better response.
But if you, I guess what I need to do is talk to if I do it through a mailer, maybe we won't be billed for things that don't get sent back to us. Right. Because if we did it here, we would be paying the postage for nothing.
Right.
I don't know. Dave, what's your thought?
We had several ideas about that. We feel that some people will not want to mail something back with their personal information on it. So another option was to have a drop box at City Hall where they could just swing in there and drop it off. The third option was to have a form on the website. So if you don't want to fill out this form, you can go to this web address and put your information in there, and then it would email. No matter what, all three methods require human intervention to translate it and put it into a database. In those three cases, there's a good possibility not all of them will be mailed back. And if we're prepaying for postage, it would cost us. On the other hand, we're trying to make an honest, genuine effort, and I think it's worth the investment.
Okay. We'll talk to the mailer.
I was gonna say, you could look into what a permit costs, and then I think you only pay based on the amount of responses, as opposed to, like you say, running it through the mail machine. You're out $50 every one. So
right.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to number 2. If there's no other comments, we'll move on to the discussion of the Park and Recreation Board recommendation for the marina rental rates. There was an insert in our packet.
Yeah, this is me kind of getting some feedback from the council. This is the information that Mr. Luss gave us, and he provided this during his presentation. The Park and Rec Board was fine with it. I will tell you, I did a little more research, and the last time that we raised the rates at the marina was in 2006, which was 14 years ago. If I took the $7 by the rate of inflation from 2006 to today, the new rate would be $9.14. So over the years, the rates haven't been raised periodically, unfortunately. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball as far as rates go if you look at from an inflation rate. And I think most people expect through inflation things will go up. So what I'd like to do, if the council's okay with that, I'd like to go back to the Park and Rec Board and say, hey, let's look at it from a different aspect. Is the inflation rate something we should use, or should we do it in a programmed line? We have a minimum right now of 30 feet. Yes, reducing the minimums will lower some people's fees for a little while, but it will raise other people's fees also. So it was kind of a wash. The presentation that was given to the council, it's been what, month and a half ago, maybe 2 months that it was given to you. So I just want some quick feedback. Where does the council want to go with this?
Marv?
As we talked before about this, I think dropping it back to a 25-foot and let it level off, and then eventually the rates will go up after that. Maybe tag on $1 a foot for the people that do use the electricity for a boat that's over 35 or have an air conditioning system in there. But other than that, leave it alone.
Right, Lynn, based on your research, it looks as if we're probably, and again, I know Bill Lusk did a very, very comprehensive analysis for us. And, you know, we can't compare ourselves necessarily against some marinas because they have
Right.
much, much more to offer than us. But, you know, by the same token, I wish everything didn't rise since 2006. That would be great, you know, but this is a bargain, I think. So there might be some upside potential over here. And I think we still can remain competitive for what we give the individuals. I'm not a boater, so I can't really, speak intelligently about all the amenities that we have and don't have. But, if it can go up a little bit, we can bring it up a little bit better, to reflect the inflationary costs. I mean, all of our costs have went up over since 2006. So, if we want to adjust minimums, that's fine, but maybe raise the per square foot. I have no objection to any of it, really. So I just think we should keep it as fair as we possibly can, competitive as we possibly can. It doesn't have to be the greatest bargain in the world, though. It has some pretty nice benefits.
Dave, you had some comments prior to this. What do you think?
Really, my only comment was let's task the committee and or the board, rather, Parks and Rec board, and they were to make recommendations, and we were to decide whether we were going along with it or not. I'm fine either way. Honestly, I'm indifferent on it.
Well, they are having the Park and Rec board's got a meeting November 4th, and if the council's okay with that, I'd like to take this back to them and discuss the options with the inflation.
Everybody good with that?
I'm good with it.
Okay, everybody looks good with that.
Okay.
Okay, Lynn, that's the plan. So November 4th, then you could report back to us if we have a November work session, okay?
Right.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments on that? Patty, anybody? And I don't see any citizens' hands up. Any citizens' comments? I think we're good to move on then. We'll close that topic. So now we move to item 3, which is discussion of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office traffic enforcement results and supplemental service. I know I had asked about the supplemental service last time, and Lynn, I know, was awaiting the traffic results, which we got today. So Lynn, I'll turn it over to you because I'm sure you've probably had discussions with the captain and other individuals, but you can maybe walk us through this, and then we can discuss where we want to go.
Well, we'll just go to page 6. That seems to be the simplest, and trying to break out weekends. But over the 2 week, the sheriff spent 227 hours of man hours at a cost of about $12,500. In that time, they had 214 traffic stops, 57 citations, 183 warnings. As you can see by the report, they averaged a traffic stop per hour. Now, if you look at the citations, the majority of the citations were on Causeway, and that's where the majority of the warnings and citations together were combined. And basically it's coming over the bridge where the speeds were at a higher level. Gulf Boulevard, they only gave 4 citations, and what they were using was spotters, and there was a spotter deputy somewhere and police cars at other locations when he called them out. As an example, we had a spotter at Causeway and Gulf there at the stoplight. He sat on the bench for several hours, and basically a deputy, if somebody kept wherever they ran the stoplight, they went after him. When it came to here at City Hall, they had the people in the parking lot ready to catch the any speeders, and they had a deputy posted that was clocking the speed in civilian clothes that was unbeknownst to anyone. If you look at the citation wise, the cost of that, basically they gave 1 ticket for every 4 man hours of use, which 4 man hours is $220. And that's using a spotter and a deputy. The area that we've talked about many times, we're on Bayshore, just to go through that, the stop sign. Based on the conversation I had with the deputies, a lot of this was our residents rolling through the stop sign. It wasn't really cut-throughs. And I think it would be very limited if that, and the only way you're going to catch them is to, you would have to have a spotter and another car that would catch anyone rolling through that stop sign. Most of them were Saturday in the PM on Bayshore and Sunday morning. So the kind of thought from that was that, you know, it was people leaving their home or vice versa coming back. As you note in the detail, there were a few of our residents got into discussions because they got stopped, which, you know, unfortunately, that's not a good thing, I don't think. And they did cite the spotters. So based on this information, the council kind of has to weigh in and give us some thoughts on where do you want to go with this? Is the value there? Is it really the bridge that's the bigger problem? And can our current situation and occasional speed things be set up, which they've always done here at City Hall over the years? They've always had those occasionally help with that speed. So just need a little feedback.
Lynn, I would like to say I don't personally think the value is there. That seems like a lot of money for no more than they were able to, you know, actually stop people, which I guess is good because that means we don't have a lot of speeders and that kind of stuff that as we originally thought. What I would like to ask is the ticket revenue for the bridge, that doesn't go to Bellaire Beach anyway, so I don't know why we would even think about bringing in extra patrols to ticket people on the bridge when we're not making any money off of that, correct?
No, we get a small token of that because it's a ticket written. Yeah, it's I'd venture to say we probably get $35-40 out of a ticket. It's very minimal when there's a ticket given by the county that we get, you know, any great sum of money. I mean, I can get more detail if you want that, but it's a small amount.
Marv?
You know, it's not about the cost. It's about safety. It's not about how much money we spend. Lynn, I had one question to you. Did the sheriff think it was beneficial, or were they surprised at the amount of speaders and the amount over the speed limit?
No, he basically, what the feedback I got from them, they said the only area they would focus on if it was them was coming over the bridge onto Causeway Boulevard. That's was the direction or the comment that was made by Captain Liner. And in talking to the deputies that were involved in it, they agreed with that, the ones that I talked to, that it's mainly they get up over the top of the bridge, they don't hit their brake, and by the time they're getting in the city. So, you know, it's it's kind of a mixed bag. As you can see, the majority of citations and warnings were at Causeway.
Dave?
What I see is 18 violations where people ran the stop sign, or the red light rather. And I can tell you what it is because it happens every time. They approach it, they make a right turn. They're looking left. They're not paying any attention to anything coming right. I see 18 potential injuries or deaths where someone could be crossing that intersection and the driver is not paying any attention, especially if the pedestrian has a walk sign and they're crossing that intersection. There's a good possibility. I've almost been hit there several times myself because they do not look. To me, that's far more important than the 30 speeders on the causeway, but I believe it's a combined effort. I believe that out of those 18 or out of the 30, 18 of them were also speeding.
Yeah, that's a possibility. The problem with catching the rolling through the stop sign, you would have to actually have 2 off-duty personnel to do that, because you would need a person in civilian clothes somewhere as a spotter, because if they see and this was brought up by even the sheriff office, if they see a police car, they're going to stop. If they don't, they may roll through it. So you're not going to catch them if there's a police car sitting there.
Do you mind if I respond to that?
Sure,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dave.
Where I saw them, I saw one person get caught running that traffic light, and where the policeman was sitting at was in the park.
Yes.
In the parking lot, and of course that's after you've made the right turn, and he's on the left side of the street. He's in clear view of that traffic light, so I'm not sure what they're talking about, why it takes 2 people to catch somebody running the stop sign or the traffic light. But
Robin?
I often see people pulled over. Is it on either 12th or 13th Street, that very first street on the right? I often see people there. So, and because I've seen people there, I darn well make sure that I stop for a full second just to make it known. So I think that's a deterrent. And I think they're kind of already policing that. So I don't know if we need to police it more. So I don't know if the cost is really beneficial. So
I think most of those are the speeders that they're catching.
Oh yeah, because they're already in a hurry. They're going to.
And so they're pulling out of City Hall in a lot of cases, because the police cars sitting here kind of hidden behind our building. They're coming over. Mm-hmm. They catch them with radar. They don't see them. And by the time they get them pulled over, they end up making their turn. So what you're seeing is very true.
But I've also seen the cops like parked there on 12th waiting. And looking. So I mean, I've seen them looking for it. And it's definitely a great deterrent. So I don't know if the cost is, I mean, if they said they found 50 people and it was like exuberant amount of people, then I'd be like, okay, it would be worth it. But I don't know if that amount of money is worth it. So I'm kind of iffy on this one.
I think we have to keep in mind our strategic plan, and it's not about making money, it's about safety. That's our number 1 priority for the city. And we've talked about this for a long time. Every one of these, I'm with Dave Gaddis, every one of these could have been, I mean, we had somebody 50 miles an hour on the bridge. I mean, you're going to kill somebody. That bridge can't handle that. Running stop signs, running lights. This is bad stuff in a little city. We've talked about it for a while, and I think it's good. My only problem with this is if this was New Jersey, there wouldn't be 183 warnings. There would be like 200 tickets and maybe 14 warnings. And I think that's your solution for paying for it in the future, because these are ticket blitzes, okay? This is what happens. You're gonna get a ticket if you break these laws. And basically, it's one of these things that, you know, I think Dave Gaddis said it last time we were here. The message goes out that you aren't gonna be permitted to play games anymore in Bellaire Beach. You're not going to run through here doing 55 on our bridge, and you're not going to run our lights and stop signs and stuff like that. And The only thing I would say is I would definitely be in favor of seeing this happen again. I just did the math real quickly. And Lynn, if we get about $40 a ticket and we were doing 200 tickets, that's $8,000. Now, that's not such a big hit anymore for the city to put something on like this every once in a while when we decide it's maybe time to get everyone's attention again. So I'm in favor of it. And if it means spending a couple $1,000s out of our revenue, that's fine. Robin?
I would be fine if it's a periodic thing, holidays, obviously when there's going to be more traffic, or like you said, maybe a few times a year just to say, hey, we're here, we're watching. And then in reference to them saying that the residents got mad, well, you do the crime, you do the time. If you speed, you get a ticket. Hey, I'm not going to get mad at a cop for catching me doing something wrong. I'm going to say, all right, you caught me. Thank you. Sorry. Lesson learned. I won't do it again. Hence why I haven't had a speeding ticket in like 20 something years, because I learned my lesson. So I feel bad that the residents are abusing the sheriffs and yelling at them, because the residents shouldn't be entitled, because I'm a Bellaire resident, I shouldn't get a ticket. No, that's not how this works. You speed, you get a ticket.
Mark?
Well, I will tell you that there have been people tell the sheriff, I live in Bellaire Beach. So?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Marv?
I think we should do it periodically. Again, with the undercover cars, seems to work a little better. And Mayor, I agree with you. Forget the warnings, do the tickets.
Yeah, it's ticket blitz time. And, we'll even I'll tell you, we're such benevolent folks. We'll announce it at our council meeting that we're going to have a ticket blitz in November, because no one's going to listen. That's fine. And the bad guys who are flipping through the town, doing 55, well, yeah, sorry, we did tell you. I'm with you. Look, I wouldn't want to get a $200 ticket either, but I don't do 55 on the bridge. So I'm not going to get that ticket. It's real simple. And if they were busting chops, the bridge is 35. It's real easy to get it up to 40 if you're coasting your way down. I could see people being annoyed. When you're telling me you're doing 55 on a bridge, or you blew through a stoplight, I'm with Dave. What do we have to wait for somebody to get killed? That could be one of your family or mine, and I don't want it. I think we periodically do this, Lynn. Maybe we can get some recommendation from the sheriff, but I do want to see, if we can get money out of this to offset our costs, that would be great. And I know also during some times of the year, there's different programs. I know like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, things like that have different programs to there's money that they actually give during the years for certain stepped up enforcement. So maybe, we can check with the sheriff on what might be available to defray some of this stuff, because there are times of the year that the sheriff has his, the blitzes on drunk driving and things like that.
Right. He does that here periodically with the speeding. He'll bring 6 or 8 cars here in the morning and park them in this parking lot outside of City Hall. What I will go back and talk to them about, because what I'm hearing from the council is we don't want you to give warnings, we want you to give tickets, and see what feedback I get from them. And if we're going to do the supplemental, we'll have to amend the budget or do some adjustments because we'll have to set up a contract for supplemental policing.
And a suggestion from them, Lynn, as to some of the best times. I don't want to necessarily give away our cards to everybody and say, necessarily here's the times to worry about and go break the law during the other times, but, kind of give us an idea what they think is best. We don't want to be patrolling in a time when there's just not a lot of people here or something like that.
Yeah, well, how they did this, how we based the time selection was based on the data we got from the boxes that we put out there before we did this. And that's why you see times like 2 to 7 on Bayshore, or the different times in the afternoons that they did it in the evening time frames. So that's what we used to collect the data, was to pick those priority times where they were capturing some speed at that time of day. So we'll go back to them, and I don't know, does the council have a number that they're looking at? They want to allocate to this?
Lynn, just for discussion, what do you want? Every 3 months, every 2 months?
Maybe every quarter. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Yeah, but we're not talking about doing what they did, 250 hours. We're talking about
no, of course not.
Compacted. Okay. Okay, well, I'll come up with some calculations and we'll get the contract back from them and then we'll figure that out. Okay.
Dave and Ben Robin.
Okay, so I'm looking at roughly 2 weeks of hardcore pulling people over. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, so we pretty much have, there's a budget, a starting budget right there. So if it was every 2 weeks, they did this, they did it, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Well, we're looking at a little over $12,000. Well, what if it was one random week per month? And we don't announce when it is. We don't even want to know when it is. But they come in and wide open for 1 week out of every month, and now we're down to $6,000.
I mean, it could be a weekend too. You have, the games seem to happen on the weekend, at least from my observation and going around it, so, I mean, yeah, I guess you'll get people on a Tuesday morning, but you're going to get a lot more on a Saturday afternoon, particularly, once we get to, past the holidays here.
Yeah, we did Thursdays, we did Sundays, we did Saturdays, Tuesday and Wednesday. If you, delve into these reports a little more, you can kind of see the time frames we utilized. And like I said, it was all based on the data we collected from the boxes. So
Lynn, I guess we're asking you to come back maybe with a little bit more detail from the sheriff. Basically, I mean, this changes a little bit. I know we have a very benevolent sheriff sometimes with warnings versus tickets, and that would be maybe a little change in the way they want to do business. So I think that's something you're gonna have to kind of discuss with them and get back to us, because to make this thing cost effective, we're gonna have to kind of step up the ticket quotient if that's what's gonna happen. It's a blitz. I mean, and again, I don't want them. I don't want them getting, they don't want to do it anyway, but they're not getting somebody who's going a mile over the speed limit. But we want the abusers ticketed, and if it's marginal, maybe that's a warning. But there's a lot of warnings here that would never happen in some places. Robin?
Have you gotten any feedback from the sheriff about recalculations for Bellaire Shore? I'm just going to keep bringing it up because I don't want it to be dropped and forgotten.
No, he told me he was going to look into that after the fiscal year, which will bother him again because now we're in the new fiscal year.
Okay, yeah.
No, we haven't forgot about it.
I'm just going to be that, pain in the butt that's going to keep you watching until we get an answer.
Okay, I'll bring you some information back, and I'll have a further discussion with the sheriff, and we'll see where it goes from there. Okay.
I didn't see any hands raised up, so I haven't asked for any citizens' comments, but I don't see any hands, Patty. No? Okay, we'll conclude it then. So we'll move on to item number 4, discuss recognition for Purcells.
Yes, I'm the one that asked for this. I would like to see the Purcells recognized. I think it would be a great idea to have a member of the Sheriff's Department, as well as maybe a member of the Blue Thunder, to come in and present them with a certificate of acknowledgement for all of the efforts they put into Back in the Blue, since, we just had a long discussion about how important it is to have sheriffs in our city. And I think that, they should be recognized for their efforts in continuing to support them.
I'm going to speak up on this. I don't know the Purcells. They've taken the opportunity to write about me, even though they don't know me, on social media, said some stuff that's not true about me. I don't have anything against the Purcells. I saw them the other day, said hello to them in the morning. They said good morning. I said good morning back. What the Purcells do each day is, and I know they believe in their cause. I think they believe in supporting blue. So they stand outside very patriotic with American flag and a sign that says support blue, and they wave at motorists. They've started as early as 8:30 a.m. They typically go for an hour to an hour and a half each day. And that is fine. Okay. I'm glad they support law enforcement. I support law enforcement. I think everybody on our council has. I just asked for more money to be spent on law enforcement. I serve on the Pinellas County Emergency Services board as one of the mayor's representatives. So I totally support him. But I don't support what's happening, because what's happening is because of their actions, people are violating our laws with impunity in our city. People react to them by beeping car horns. And it's not a one-day thing. You know, Sheriff Gualtieri was here and he said, what am I supposed to do on election day? You know, arrest everyone. I said, no, because it's a one day, okay? This started July 21st. 2 more days, it will be 90 days. I think they missed 2 days because of the rain, but it's been 90 consecutive days of this for an hour to an hour and a half. I have spoken with Lynn Reeves. I know Lynn Reeves spoke with Captain Liner. We tried putting some signs up. It made it worse. They took the signs down. I think the last conversation, at least written, that Lynn had, according to my records, was in August. Sheriff Gualtieri asked Captain Liner to get with me to make sure I was satisfied. He called me. I sent him a tape, which I'm going to have you listen to tonight. He never called me back. So this just keeps going on in our city. And the problem I have is that Section 22-61 in our noise ordinance says that horns and signaling devices are illegal, except as a danger warning. That's the number one thing in our noise ordinance. And if you don't like that, then we've got the state ordinance that says no vehicle shall, the driver to ensure safe operation shall give an audible warning with his or her horn. You're not permitted to beep your horns because you support people. And I've given Fred Riley a court case right from our own Sixth Circuit that says you have no right to do that. So we have this going on, and it's going on day after day after day. And people are annoyed with it. We've had at least 4 neighbors in my area complain. People, including myself, were skewered on social media, which is not right. I'm trying to enforce the laws. I support law enforcement, but this isn't the way to do it. So I want you to hear, this is exactly what Captain Liner heard. I'm going to play you 3 minutes and 21 seconds. This was not enhanced. It was simply my phone placed on the balcony, about 3 feet from my bedroom window. And this is what it sounds like for 3 minutes. Multiply this by 60, and that's what you're going to get every single day. It hasn't started yet.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm not hearing nothing.
It's only when cars come by. Okay, folks, that's 3 minutes. So when they go for an hour and a half, multiply that by 60, and you have a pretty good idea of the noise that's going on that's supposedly helping the police. Unfortunately, it's not helping the police. The police have asked them to stop. Our code enforcement officer asked them to stop. They haven't stopped. I don't see that it's actually producing anything for our city other than, well, a lot of violations that are going unchecked. This is not acceptable in a city that calls itself a premier city. It's disturbing the neighbors, it's disturbing people. And yes, there's people that support the cause. I support their cause. I just don't support the way this is being done. Our city has to do something about this. Our sheriff has to do something about this, and our city manager has to do something about this. Our city attorney is going to have to do something about this. So it's going to wind up costing us money because I think there's legal considerations here. You can't enforce your noise ordinance if you're going to let people every day violate the first thing that's in it. I don't know how you go to somebody's house who's playing a loud stereo and tell somebody to turn that off when you sit here and permit for an hour to an hour and a half per day this blatant violation for 90 days running. So I'm calling on this council and this city to do something. It's I believe, a targeted protest. Fred Riley can tell you what that means. I'm not going to give you a lot of legal ease here, but we're going to have problems if we don't get a handle on this. That's all I want to say. So I have no problem with thanking the Purcells for their support of law enforcement, but I just wish they would find a different way to show that support. Robin.
No, I agree. That's very annoying, especially if it's for an hour like that. And I wouldn't want that outside my house. So, I mean, and of course I support the cause and I appreciate them supporting the cause, but can we maybe find a middle ground and find a compromise? Like they can do it, but maybe move around, do it in front of City Hall one day, do it on another street another day, do it somewhere else. And I know they're going to say now, well, we can't park on the street, blah, blah, blah. But hey, maybe we can give them a pass that, hey, as long as they're supporting this cause, they can park on whatever Bellaire Beach street they want, but move it around so that the same area is not getting inundated with this noise pollution. Because, you know, it's true. Like what happens if I lived right next door to them and I decided 1 hour every day I was going to blare my stereo, you know, reggae music, and are you going to come after me when you don't, you know? So, I mean, I see both sides. I'm all about the police. It's not that. I don't care if they were supporting Black Lives Matters or honk your horn if you love your chihuahua. I don't care. But I think a compromise would be fine where maybe we could get them to spread the love for the police. Because honestly, where they're at, you probably don't get as much traffic as if you would in front of like City Hall. Or
Robin, they were, just so you know, and I'm gonna open it up. I'm not going to speak anymore about. I just want to give a fact to your point. All those suggestions you made, which are all excellent, have been raised to them, and they've declined every single one of them. They were told that it's not convenient for them. We said you can get a pass. We'll let you park in City Hall, spread it around. It's better equipped. There's more space. The marina gives you 100+ feet. By the way, I think there's a misconception here. People are publishing stuff like, well, there's a vacant house, so you can't hear a car horn. A car horn, to be legal in the state of Florida, must be audible at least 200 feet. I've got neighbors 4 houses down from me that are hearing this stuff. So you could imagine, I'm 60 feet away from this, and it's more than annoying. I mean, it's actually, I think it's actually becoming an issue, okay? So all that stuff has been brought to their attention. They refuse to do it. Okay, and the city can set legally reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, which Fred Riley can tell you about. So we don't have to permit somebody to stand on the same corner and torture the neighbors by doing this, okay? Again, it doesn't matter the cause. I'm with you. You know, they have a Trump flag out there now. I got a Trump flag on my house, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's a Trump flag, a Biden flag, a Romney flag. It doesn't matter, okay? I have a sheriff's, by the way, I have a sheriff's, Sheriff Galtieri sign on my house. It doesn't matter. Your cause doesn't matter. It's the law breaking. That's the problem. Dave Gaddis.
I think right now we're in a time of political indifference where everyone is energized about everything right now. I'm not sure if we would be inviting more problems by trying to put a stop to it. I am certainly not for rewarding someone for using their free speech. there's lots of people waving flags all over the county right now. I don't think we need to give out prizes for that, for that type of behavior. I say that we grin and bear it, get through this election cycle, and then if it continues, maybe then we address this. I'm just afraid that if we try to stop these people from exercising their First Amendment right, it may very well, more people may come, and you may have incessant horn blowing between now and Election Day. That's
Dave,
my 2 cents.
I will tell you this, and I share with you that I'm not saying to stop them. Okay, I don't like what's there. It's arguable whether they're violating the law or not. They're probably not, the way I read the law. Certainly, our city attorney would have to make an opinion as to whether there's even anything there. But the people beeping the horns are clearly violating the law. They're violating two. They're violating a state law and a local law. By the way, I'm going to note that Glenn Gunn is connecting at this point. 6:57. But I do think that, I agree with you. I don't think it's something that should be rewarded. Ironically, a person wrote me a letter. I think she wrote everybody a letter on council. And they go out and they pick up garbage on the beach, so much so that they unfortunately have earned the nickname of the garbage lady, but it's actually said in a nice way. She picks up garbage on our beach for 15 years. That's something I want to recognize if we're going to do it. But something like this, there's other ways of supporting the police. And quite frankly, I'm sure, I know the police appreciate it, but there's police staffs like St. Petersburg that are getting defunded by their city. And I know Chief Holloway. I can get the person in contact with them. I'm sure the chief would appreciate the support down in St. Petersburg, because there's a mayor that does not support the police, and that's not what we have in our city. Robin, you have your mute button. There you go.
Yeah, it's hard because I know that technically the people in violation of the law are the people honking the horns, but it's not like people that drive by that are honking the horns know they're breaking the law, because I didn't know that and I never would have known that if I wasn't on council and this issue came up. So it's hard to enforce that part of it, and you don't want to pull people over and give them a ticket for the horn. So it's kind of like, I'm with Dave. I don't think we need to address this right this second, but talking about that things are getting heated because of the election cycle with the political environment now. This has been going on since July, but because of the hype of the political, it shouldn't be addressed right this second. Let's wait till November, end of November, and see. But we may have to get a little stricter, and I don't know how to do that. I'm just saying that I think it needs to be reasonable. And I'm with Dave. I don't think, like, if I go out there and start waving my political person's flag for an hour every, Saturday, I'm not going to expect a reward. So I don't think you should reward them for this. If the sheriff wants to go up to them and acknowledge them and say thank you, well, then that's fine. But I'm with Dave. I don't think we need to reward somebody exercising their First Amendment right. In that case, I want a reward on next, on November 3rd when I do my vote. So just saying.
Anyone else? All right, so the consensus is then we're going to wait and monitor this. Mr. Reeves, I would like to hear back from Captain Liner. He promised me a phone call, and it's not like him not to return my phone calls. He promised me, Sheriff Gualtieri asked him to get with me. So I spoke to him August 21st. I'd like to hear from him, and I'd like to discuss this issue a little bit further with him. So I want him to be up to date on what we just discussed tonight. And the sheriff himself asked for him to contact me. So I'd appreciate that telephone call coming, because I would hate like hell to have to call, and remind the sheriff that I didn't get that call back.
Yeah, I'll mention that to Captain Liner. And I will tell you that the council as a whole, when the signs were put up there, it was a lot worse, and it was happening. And after seeing that for 2 or 3 days, I told the sheriff, take those signs out of there, because all it was doing was making people honk at 6 o'clock at night or whenever. The mayor probably would know better than me, but
No, it was pretty bad. But, the other thing, I just wanted to add something to what Dave said before. We talked about it could make matters worse. This weekend, and again, everyone knows I have my Trump flag outside, but there was apparently a Trump rally. I heard it all the way here. Didn't know that was happening, but there were some complaints from some citizens that it was pretty disturbing, and they couldn't get out of their street, and then people were on megaphones and horn honking and everything else. And again, I'm not going to say that that's acceptable because he's my guide. It's not acceptable at all. Okay, and on the way back, I actually thought there was a fight going on outside my house, and there was a bunch of people, and I'm not going to say the word because there might be youngsters listening, but they were using the F word up and down the block, F Bellaire Beach, F you Bellaire Beach, F you, F you. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't pay $700,000 for this, okay? We're better than this, and, I'm not taking away anybody's free speech right, but when you invite this, and yes, it's a good cause. I think what the Purcell's trying to support the police, that's great. But you have to realize, I heard somebody one morning pretty much giving them a real jawboning because I guess their girlfriend or friend was beaten by the police and they were ripping into them. I'm afraid that the counter protesters or someone else catches wind of this, and all of a sudden we get a scene in Bellaire Beach that we really don't want, So, I mean, there are people, we all like the police and we support them and everything. There are people that do not like them, and when they come to town, they're not waving American flags, So I just want to caution everyone that we're kind of playing with gasoline here. Anyone else who close the topic? Yeah, Fred.
Well, I want to say several things. The obvious.
He cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, after several things, we didn't hear a thing. So go ahead, start again.
Okay. I knew this was coming up, so I've looked at several things, and I can cover a number of things. The first thing I would tell you is that I would separate the original topic, which is honoring citizens versus whether how the laws are being enforced. I know they're in some ways inextricable, but I think at times the decision-making process for the council gets confused when other things are brought in and are other factors that are considered instead of the factor that's on the table. Having said that, anybody that's on a sidewalk, that's typically a public forum, and it's constitutional for somebody to stand on the sidewalk with a sign that, like Robin said, I love my Chihuahua, or I back the blue, or it's a sunny day and God bless you, whatever they say. That is a constitutional place. So you have, other than requesting nicely somebody to relocate, I don't know that there's much you can do to restrict a public forum. Having said that, it's really not appropriate, in my opinion, for somebody to purposely do something in one location that is targeted to annoy somebody specifically, and that really shouldn't be going on. And I wish people would behave in a different manner than doing that, if indeed that is what's going on. I don't have personal knowledge of that, but I know there's a lot of chatter in Bellaire Beach on social media about lots of things, and I am just making the observation that it really should not be a targeted thing, because that inevitably leads to a different problem, which is something I can talk at length about, or I would rather actually not talk at length about, but I will mention it. If you have laws on the book, then you have an obligation to enforce the laws. If you choose to not enforce the laws, or you choose to do things that are, for want of a better phrase, arbitrary and capricious, that inevitably will get you into trouble. So the situation that you have here is that you don't have a police force. You subcontract that with the sheriff's department. You subcontract your work with code enforcement to the sheriff's department, and there's contracts that govern that. And I can read to you right now what the legal standards are in each of those contracts. But you have another party other than the city that is actually doing the enforcement. And I will say on their behalf, they have finite resources, and they, police certainly have some degree of discretion, and, there's other things that they could be doing, and a lot of their work, in my opinion, is priorities. But I've talked to both Lynn and Mayor Manzo about this on several occasions. To me, it is a difficult problem. I think Robin brought up the issue of whether the person with a sign is committing a violation. My reading of that would be, under most circumstances, they were not. The person that's beeping the horn under the Florida statute and the city's code provision is the one that is potentially, arguably, committing an offense, and they're the one that should, be penalized if they're doing something that's in violation of the law. Having said all that, this is something where I simply don't have a silver bullet to offer you as to what is the solution. I will read you one line out of the agreement with the Sheriff's Department about law enforcement, and this basically was brought up before, and I think it would be, if the decision that you make tonight is to, and I'm putting the Purcells aside, if the decision you make tonight with respect to how do you get a consensus on the further action you take, if any, I'd like you to keep this in mind. This is from the sheriff's contract, and it says, in the event that such concerns arise, the sheriff will meet and confer with the city manager on policy matters regarding the delivery of such services and attempt to resolve any disputes or misunderstandings between them. So that's in the contract. I think you basically did that once already. I would suggest to you that that be done again. And as several people have pointed out, there's possibly some hope that sometime within 2 to 3 weeks, things will calm down on a lot of different fronts, although there's no guarantee that will happen. So I can respond to any questions if you have them, but I just wanted to give you some things to think about in the event that you want to revisit this in the future.
Thank you, Fred. I just, I've read the sheriff's contract too, and there's also a provision that says the sheriff shall discharge his responsibility by this agreement by the enforcement of all state laws, county ordinances applicable within the city, and the ordinances of the city. Now, I'm not advocating that the sheriff's in breach of the contract. I'm not. But, and there's certainly room for discretion, but we just saw a chart by Lynn Reeves that we had sheriff services for multiple weeks. And I'm, I guess, a little surprised that we didn't throw a sheriff down here and maybe attack this problem, and let people see that this is not acceptable. Again, we have laws on our books, and it is targeted. I can give you 2 inches of postings from the internet. We're collecting them all, and it's a problem. Okay, I think it's something that we have to look at. I'm certainly amenable to saying give it a little bit more time. Election day, I think, is only 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks away. Maybe this will change, but I don't want to wake up Christmas morning listening to this, okay? And I don't think anybody else should have to. If it was in front of your house, you wouldn't want it. If it was in front of Lynn's house, you wouldn't want it. Robin's shaking her head. I know she wouldn't want it. Doubt the kids would like it. So I don't think this is something we should be doing. And our city needs to make an attempt, not just throw up its hands. So I'm willing to try and speak. I want to speak with Captain Liner. That was Sheriff Gualtieri's order. I don't direct him. I'm just going to give him my opinion, being an eyewitness here. Lynn Reeves Lynn, last thing I saw was from August. I know you did something on the signs, but maybe it's time to step it up and let them know that the problem is ongoing. They know it because they drive by every day. I see them. And I'm monitoring it, guys. I mean, I'm not sitting here doing nothing. I'm monitoring it. So, let's see what we can do. Maybe someone can speak to these individuals. I think Rita knows them. Maybe she can explain to them what the situation is and how it's impacting people. I don't think it's helping their cause. I mean, I'll get them in touch with Chief Holloway. I know he would love to have help down in St. Petersburg. They need help. We support our sheriff. We like our sheriff. We like him a lot. And we're putting him in a real difficult way here. Marv?
I'd like to speak after Marv.
Yes, you go ahead. Marv first, then Rita.
Yeah, maybe an issue at hand. If the sheriff is in the area and somebody is blowing the horn, they just give them a warning. Usually the sheriff will give 1 or 2 warnings and then a ticket. So it's possible that these people just don't realize the violation. So if they get a couple of warnings and then a ticket, then it'll stop, or at least give them a warning that it's a law on the books that there may not be aware of, so that, and then stop them and talk to them and see what happens then. Pass out.
Who's next?
Yeah, just so everybody realizes, I know you've made suggestions that they should go different places and everything, but they live like 2 houses down from that corner, 2 or 3 houses down. They're an elderly couple. They walk down there every morning to support the Blue. I've spoken with another homeowner that is right there on the corner, and actually he brings out chairs for them to sit down if they need, or drinks. I mean, he has had absolutely no complaint. He is exactly right where they're, his property's right about where they're standing. So they're not really targeting anyone. I know the city attorney, Fred Riley, used that term, but they go there because it's easy to walk there. They don't have to drive anywhere or carry their signs, half a mile away or whatever. But they're not doing it for any other reason other than, they just want to support the Blue. I mean, I've spoken to them at length. So, I mean, I think the other council members might benefit to go down there and speak with them as well. So, I mean, go down there and find out, why they do it. Listen to their story. I mean, and obviously they have First Amendment rights as well, so.
I had a neighbor, Robin, I'll come to you next. I had a neighbor who actually stood with them for a day until I told them what was happening and what it sounds like, and played them. Well, I didn't have to play them the tape, they knew. And they said, Joe, these people are fed up. They've had it. They've just, they don't like the disrespect that's being shown to the police. I share that sentiment. I was enraged when I saw people dumping buckets of water over the New York police. That was something when I lived up there, it just never happened. But you have a mayor that's extremely tolerant of that up there, and they're disrespecting them. So again, I share what they're doing, but not standing in the same place every day. And for the record, I've seen the Purcells coming off the beach after taking a walk on the beach. These are not disabled people. They actually are in pretty good shape. They have pretty good endurance to be standing out there for an hour to an hour and a half in August sun. Pretty difficult. Robin, you're next.
No, I was going to kind of counter Rita's statement, kind of like what you just said about, I mean, to me, walking to houses carrying signs, being elderly, seems like would be a lot harder than driving somewhere and walking 10 feet with the sign. So, and that's just from a medical standpoint. I mean, cardiovascularly, one makes more sense than the other. So I don't think that's a good argument. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's probably more convenient for them instead of, walking 10 feet to their car, getting in their car, driving 4 blocks, parking their car, walking another 10 feet. But my whole point is, I think if they truly believed in the cause, which I feel they do, then I think they would want to spread the cause around. So I don't see the problem with spreading the love. Go to City Hall. Hey, park in front of my house for a day. I don't care. And do it for a day, not every day. One day out of the month, sure. I'm sure all of us would be happy with that. If that's, spreading the love, that's fine. But my whole thing is, to me, not being amenable to and not taking, you're so concerned about police and supporting them, but you're not supporting your neighbors and you're being selfish in that. I mean, I'm not buying that. And I've never spoken to them, and I'd be happy to, but unfortunately I'm at work by the time they're out there. But yeah, that's just my thing. So I support their cause, but I think they could do it a little bit differently. And honestly, if it was me out there and people came up to me and was like, this is kind of annoying us. I'm working from home. My kids are distance learning at home. It's a little distracting. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, how about this? Maybe tomorrow I'll go somewhere else, and then we'll do it maybe once a week here or something, whatever. That's how I would react. That's it.
Thank you, Robin. Anybody else? Then we're going to move on. We're not going to, with the consensus then is that we're not going to do any special awards and rewards. And then we're going to monitor this closely, and I'll be reporting back to the city manager. Lynn, I'm not going to give you an everyday thing. I know your guys drive by it. They see that it's ongoing. I'll let you know when it stops. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay, but you're aware of it. It just continuing. Okay. All right. So let's move on to item 5. We have a discussion. Does anybody need a break? We're at 7 o'clock. We're good. Everybody's good? Okay. Discussion of marked walking and or bicycle path for all city streets. Marv?
Yes, I brought this up, and we have a couple of elderly residents that live on 22nd Street at the end, and a couple of neighbors on my block that have young children, and they're finding that now that it's getting a little darker in the evenings, and they're kind of concerned about the traffic back and forth and their children riding bikes or walking in the streets. And the elderly person said he's getting a little scared because they get too close to him, and there's not a designated place for anybody to walk or ride a bike since we don't have sidewalks. The one elderly neighbor suggested, why don't we put sidewalks in? Well, that I don't think is going to happen, but maybe we should look or talk about designated walking areas on the streets, left or right, or both sides. I don't know.
Marv, when I saw this, my first concern, and I'm going to ask Lynn Reeves this question to maybe elaborate. If we were to put, I don't know how wide a bicycle lane is, maybe 3 feet or so. If we were to put 3 feet bicycle lanes on each side of our street, I think we'd have to become one ways because I don't think our streets are wide enough to pass two vehicles anymore. So I was wondering if you were talking about maybe certain streets, that happen to be wider where maybe this could be accommodated. But I think if, like, I'm here on, my street, and if you put 2 bicycle lanes here, we're going to be a one way. I don't think you can pass 2 cars, particularly when you pass a bicyclist, you're supposed to give them 3 feet. So if someone's hugging the inside lane, wow, we may have problems here. So that was, it's not that it's such a bad idea. I think the sidewalks idea is wonderful, but I think it prohibitively costs, it's just going to be, it's not cost effective for us. So Lynn, I don't know what the right standard is for bicycle lanes and everything. I'm sure you're more familiar.
Yeah, it's 3 feet. Generally speaking, it's 3 feet per bike lane. And realistically, about the only street that you might, and that would be probably the strip between Gulf and Bayshore on 22nd, because you might be able to do it there, but it still would be very tight because even when there's I'll say a yard cutter, to get around it, sometimes you have to go in the median a little bit when they're parked along the street. But like 7th Street, 8th Street, 1st, 2nd, up to there, you couldn't do that. You'd reduce the drive lane.
Robin?
What about between, like, on 22nd Street, between Bayshore and the end, and then even Bayshore seems pretty wide to me, like you could have, those 2 seem wide to me. And then I don't think probably 7th, 8th, those in streets really needed because I don't know how much traffic, but like Bayshore, 22nd, there's a lot of traffic going through there. So it's an idea for those high traffic areas. I don't know about Bellaire if that one is wide enough because that would be another high traffic area. So I think if we could focus on the high traffic areas and see if it's feasible, I think it's a good idea because I'm with Marv. I mean, my kids, it scares me, and I've seen the older gentlemen, and a couple of them that are walking with their walker, and I totally understand. And I've walked with my dog and seen him come too close. So especially around that little curve there on 22nd, right before the bridge, it can get a little close there. So yeah, can we look in to see if maybe those would be feasible measurement wise?
We can look into the width of the road and see what we would have left. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head, 22nd, where the median is between Bayshore and Gulf, that there's a possibility there. Bayshore, I don't know. We'll just have to do some measurements to tell you.
Marv threw out an idea, and I know we kind of always, it's come up before, we always say it's going to be too expensive, but I've never seen, costs or anything like that. This idea of sidewalks. And now, not in every city street. I know we can't put them in, and I don't think, your street, my street, we probably don't need them. We don't get enough traffic, but, we know some of the streets are busier, and it may benefit from that. Do you have an idea? I mean, is there just a rule of thumb, maybe per foot, a running foot of sidewalk? What are we talking about over here? Because maybe we could do a street. It's like your paving stuff. Do a street or 2 streets a year or something like that. And that's to this point too.
Well, you could do that. Here's the first thing that's probably going to come up with some of the residents. Do you want a sidewalk in your front yard? Which we do have the right-of-way there. Actually, we have a rather large right-of-way in the area that Marv lives in, and Robin, Dave. They're along 22nd Street. That's a pretty good size right-of-way also. If we did, we'd probably have to do a minimum of a 3-foot sidewalk. And that's not real conducive because really it should be a little bit wider with ADA and things of that nature. I can get you some numbers. I don't, off the top of my head, it's probably $7 or $8 a square foot for sidewalk to be put down.
Dave?
The only way I would go along with that would be if the neighborhoods did a petition and we voted on it.
Glenn?
I have no interest in doing that.
Glenn? You have the mute on there. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm with Dave. I'm just kind of tired of this anecdotal, I heard from somebody that they're scared of a car passed too close to them. Well, where's the science behind some of this stuff? I mean, how many people, where's the demographics, what's the usage? Before you start budgeting money to do this stuff and having to run the interference with taking people's right away. I mean, it's a city's right away. I understand that, but I mean, you're going to get some major pushback on some of this stuff. And again, it's the anecdotal, well, I heard somebody told me this, or everybody is against this or whatever. It's like, let's put some science and like Dave says, and just like the traffic calming policy, get a petition together and run it through the same kind of protocols and framework. If you want to really go down spending this kind of money, it's not cheap. And you can expect a lot of pushback on this stuff. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Marv?
Yeah, I agree. The pushback, I don't think I'd like it either. But the point of it is there are some issues out there with kids on bikes or older people walking around. So mark the streets is something that they brought up where it would let the cars stay away from the side of the roadway, and at least they'd have a safe zone. I don't say all the streets, but the ones that are major thoroughfares to go to the beach, say. 22nd is a major thoroughfare. A lot of people bring the wagons, the kids, the dogs, walk right across the street, and they go to the beach. So you'll see that on the weekends, and sometimes you'll see it during the day. Older people walking around with walkers, there are only 2, that's true. But why do we need to make them statistics? I don't know. It was brought up to me, I bring it up to you, we discuss it, end of story.
Robin?
Yeah, I'm with Marv. I mean, trust me, I get it. No one's going to want a sidewalk. I had said before I got on council, why don't we put sidewalks in while we're undergrounding? I mean, that would be the time to do it. But my thing is I think something, if it's conducive, the walking bike path mark, I think would work great because nobody's yard gets put up. Now, if someone tells me that the white paint in front of their house is offensive, well, yeah, okay. But I think that would be a great middle ground, a great compromise. That way it's visible for the drivers to stay away from that. The bikers, the walkers, the dog walkers, the kids all have a path to go on. So if it's feasible, like he said, the streets. And then also on 22nd, I mean, do we need that median? Can we put a sidewalk down the median or, you know, around the trees? Because that one is a major thoroughfare to the beach access. And that is a very tight area for cars and a well walked. I mean, I'm very aware of the precautions that you need to take. And I've seen pedestrians almost get hit, and it's a little scary.
Lynn, is this something that, I mean, what do we do? Do we, there's good points. I mean, Glenn's point is valid. There's going to be pushback. Marv's point is valid. I don't want to be, you know, scraping up somebody who got hit by a car someday and because we didn't spend money on a sidewalk. So, I mean, but I think we do have to kind of see where the neighbors are on this. And it's not necessarily majority rules, but where are we at with it? I mean, if it's 2 people on a whole block, that's one thing. 22nd's a bad street. There's a couple other ones in our city, but I don't think every city street needs it. So
no, I think we'll look into the widths and see what we have and bring it to another work session. You know, as a resident here, I would make the same comment that Dave and Glenn made. I don't want a sidewalk in front of my house either. So I'm happy where I live. So I have no interest in a sidewalk. And unfortunately, my street, as well as the mayor's street, if I put 3 foot in the street, I'd have a 1.5 lane car lane.
Yeah, we'll be one way. Robin?
Now, I don't know the rules. Do you have to have a walking bike path on each side of the street, or could it be one?
No, you could do it. You can. There's no requirement that it has to be on both sides. That's really there's no law that says that. Okay, so we can look into that option. Maybe one that couldn't support 2, but could support 1. That could be. We'll get some street width measurements and see, because there is the state law. You got to have 3 feet separation even from the bike lane, and you know it could be that there's not enough space there at all. But we'll look.
Robin, I mean, we have a guy who I know him. He bikes all the time. He's always biking. He bikes our street all the time, and there's no problem because my street doesn't. Same thing with Lynn's street. We don't get that much traffic, you know. And usually you can't really go that fast. You can't build up that much speed. But we know like 22nd, some of the others, people can build up a little bit more. So I mean, do I want a sidewalk? I don't know. I had a sidewalk in front of my house, every house I've ever had, so it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I would rather see a place in the city that needs it more get it first. I just don't think we need it in our city and our street. Lynn doesn't think so either. I agree with them, but if you put one, I wouldn't be too upset. You know, it's no big deal. It's less grass to cut, so it doesn't matter.
We'll put the first one in front of your house, man.
I'm fine with that. It's 6 feet less grass. It's okay.
Honestly, I don't want a sidewalk either. I'd be happy having it on Glenn's side of the road, but But my whole point is then I'm all about let's compromise in the middle. Let's focus on the high traffic streets, which we all know what they are. And let's see if at least one bike lane could. Now, I know if we only put one bike lane, there's going to be a problem, which side of the street. But let's start with if it's a possibility and go from there.
Okay.
Sounds good. Lynn, you'll get back to us maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe work with a little bit with Marv here.
Yeah.
Everyone's good with that?
I would also like to throw in that I agree with Councilmember Gaddis and Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn and City Manager Lynn Reeves. I'd like to see some information on cost, see some information on measurements, and definitely would like for us to reach out to the community and see what they want.
I think that's the consensus, yes. Glenn.
Yeah, just one last comment. My observation riding bicycles to the beach and walking to the beach is the residents don't walk down, well, few residents walk down 22nd Street. Most people recognize that as a major feeder road for Bay Shore and all the other streets. And guess what? As soon as they're across the bridge, where do they go? They hit 21st Street or they go up. They don't walk down 22nd Street because they know it's a major thoroughfare. So once again, not only the costs involved, but what are we going to do? Build a sidewalk and they will come? I mean, let's understand what the traffic is. I mean, put in a sidewalk so somebody can walk down it once a week. I mean, it's the anecdotal thing. How many people? Yeah, I walked down 22nd Street once. Therefore, we need a sidewalk because a car came within 12 feet of me and it was going 75 miles an hour. You know, it's all anecdotal. Let's put some measurement to it. Thanks.
Anyone else? We'll close that topic then. I didn't see any hands, Patty. There's no one, I didn't note anyone. No? Okay, we'll move on then. So item 6, this was actually my item, discussion of Town of Redington Shores Ordinance. It's on short-term rental. I'm not really looking for a discussion. I'm giving it to you simply as a piece of information. Redington Shores volunteered this markup of their short-term rental ordinance. They were having problems. I guess there was somebody there renting and advertising that the house can sleep 38, and apparently it couldn't. And they put their attorneys on it. I'm not sure who their firm is, but apparently they did a lot of work. They, just like us, are grandfathered in. So they were very mindful of the fact that they couldn't really touch it. Our rule, for anybody who's listening might not be aware, we have a grandfathered ordinance for short-term rentals, and we're not supposed to touch it. But they do also, and their attorneys assured them, and with a lot of hard work, that this thing would be okay. I'm not making any representation that it's okay. I'm giving it to us as a piece of information that we may want to keep for future use. I know Jody Shirley had something she wanted to bring up on this topic, but she's not here. So I just want to get this to you, read it over. I'm not advocating that we do anything, but I think Fred Riley gets a copy here. We may need this in the future, and there's a lot of legal work that has been put into this apparently. This thing hasn't been battle tested. I don't think anyone's challenged their ordinance in court or anything, but they volunteered it to us, so I give it to everybody else as a piece of information. That's it. If anyone wants to speak on it, I certainly will open the floor. Marv?
Oh, about 10 years ago, there was a house rented on my street. Not going to say the house. And it was rented by 4 people. And by the time the day was done, there were 30 because of invites. And I'm sure it happens from time to time. A couple may rent a home for a short term or a condo, and all of a sudden you have 30 visitors for the day or for the evening or whatever. And I don't know how good this is, but there are parts of it, I read through it from one end to the other, the parts of it that sure sound like it would be of good use if we had it. Lynn, what's your comment on this?
Well, I did speak to or had Patty speak to the city clerk there and ask them about this, and the information we got back is they did not really have a short-term ordinance that they could effectively use, and that's why they built this. I haven't spoken to anyone else there, so I don't really know. I think our short-term rental ordinance as it stands now, it's grandfathered. We seem to, we're very proactive if we have a problem. We go after them, take them to code enforcement. The condos have their own condo docs that's set up their system, so the condo associations take care of them. I know that, which I'm doing some research on, there's, it's called the Bellaire Beach Club. There's an issue that Jody is concerned about, them renting single night rooms, and we've got to get a little more clarification of what they really are, because part of those units are owned by one corporation and the rest of the units are owned by individuals. So at the current time, this is good information to have, but I think our current ordinance, we seem to do okay with it, and I definitely would not touch it, because if you modify it in any way, shape, or form, then you fall under the state's revised statute into short-term rentals, and I don't think we want to do that.
Lynn, Marv, I'm going to come back to you. I just want to give a piece of information, everyone. I don't know who you spoke to there, but that's what you said, and the information that they gave you regarding that they didn't have a working ordinance. That's contrary to what Mayor Henderson told the Big C. She said that they did, in fact, have an ordinance and that was grandfathered in and they had to work around it, but they had some holds. And one thing I will say, one of the things I think, Lynn, you're always on it when it comes to somebody with these short-term rental abuses and stuff like that. So I'm not saying we have a problem. I'm not saying we ever need to use it. We've got it. Let's use it if necessary. But they apparently had the same thing, and their attorneys were told, do not disturb the grandfathering. So I'm not sure who their firm is. Again, I didn't go into it all, but I wanted to pass this out to everyone. So Marv?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll maybe make a phone call myself to the clerk, because the information Patty got back for me last week was that, because I was out of town last week, so I asked her to make a phone call.
No, that's why she volunteered. Mayor Henderson volunteered it to everyone for that reason. She said, you might find this useful, and they were worried about the grandfathering. So,
okay.
Marv?
Yeah, I'll just bring up common things. If it's an older house in Bellaire Beach and it has a pool, and there's only one main drain in the bottom of the pool, that's a violation for renters. If there are no ground faults, if there are no fire extinguishers, if the doors are hung the wrong way, if there's only 2 bedrooms and you have 6 or 7 or 8 people renting or visitors, no fire alarms, no emergency call out just in case something happens. I think you're supposed to have that when you rent a home. There are certain requirements that the county has in place. So I don't know if people that rent homes have to abide by our rules or the county rules, which is the most important, or if something happened, which municipality or county would be able to help us out if there was a problem. Don't know.
Anyone else?
Somebody falls, somebody drowns, a fire breaks out in the house. There's no fire extinguisher, no fire alarm, no electrical safety. Those are the things I'm concerned about.
Lynn, do we require a fire inspection for these rental homes each year?
No. They don't really fall under the fire code to be able to do that, because they're not like a Airbnb or anything, because you have to be 90 days to be able to rent a place in Bellaire Beach.
What about the condos? They're shorter.
I know they have fire inspections. I don't know how in depth they are. I know they do fire inspections for the condos. The fire marshal, I'm blanking his name. Bob Hill.
Bob Hill, yeah. Could you just, when you have a chance, I
Yeah.
don't think it's immediate, but if you would just check in, I mean, even more concerning is the condos because of the density of individuals there. So let's just make sure that, that they're being inspected on a regular basis and that, that we're covered. I don't want to read the newspaper someday and see that somebody died in a condo fire in our town. We just have to be proactive.
Right.
So, yeah. Great.
Okay.
Anyway, so you have this information, Fred. I think it's probably good for you to have that, and and down the road, if it comes up, you might want to speak with their attorneys and see what they were thinking and doing on this. But we may have use for it, so I just pass it on to you because I got it out of another city. All right, with that, we'll move on to the 7th item, which is discussion of political sign ordinance. I know Fred Riley's done quite a bit of work on this. I don't know, Fred, if you want to go first, unless somebody else has something to say, you can move over to Fred. Fred, you have the floor.
Okay. During the summer, an issue came up, and I wrote a memo that came with the agenda item, and I made quite a few changes to the city's sign ordinance, which encompasses a number of different provisions. What I was trying to convey in the memo that I wrote to you is that several things. One, the cases on the signs, political signs, any kind of signs, they're a constitutional quagmire, in my opinion. There's a lot of cases. They're they're in federal court because it's always a claim that somebody's constitutional rights are being violated. And the more I dug into trying to make changes to the city's sign ordinance, the place that I finally got to is that what to me probably makes the most sense is to overhaul the whole sign ordinance and break it into basically 2 categories: commercial signs and non-commercial signs. I got to a point where I really felt that was the thing that needed to be considered, yet I really didn't want to continue tinkering with it, hoping that's what the council ultimately would like to do. So Lynn and I talked about it a number of times, and I did make some changes because I started doing red line changes based on different things that I uncovered during my research. But really where I am now is that I gave really 2 alternatives in the memo. One is if this was something that you wanted to task a code revision committee with, then I think they could look at this issue and come up with an overall ordinance. Or I can do it if I was given direction that, yes, we would like you to do that, and this is the direction you would like to do. One of the things that I will tell you that I've learned from looking at other cities, how they've handled it, quite a few other cities have handled it by simply overhauling their code provisions into commercial and non-commercial. If you task a code review committee with doing this, then my first suggestion to them would be, understand what the constitutional requirements are, and then secondly, look at some of the cities, much like what Mayor Manzo just explained. Other cities have done this, and they've spent a lot of time, effort, and resources developing their codes. And there were several that I looked at that I borrowed quite a bit from other cities because they were addressing things that I felt were important based on the cases I had read. But I don't recommend that you reinvent the wheel. I recommend that either through a code review committee or the city council considering it further and giving me direction, that you decide on how the problem should be tackled, and then go through the process of tackling it. So in a nutshell, that's where things are.
Fred, thank you for the background and the research on this. And I'll totally agree with you. It's a very, very complex issue. And you and I have spoken briefly about this in the past. And I think, and this is in no way to diminish, we don't even know who's going to be on this code committee. I think Fred, if you, me, and 2 or 3 other lawyers were going on this, we'd probably spend a month and maybe get a piece of law that might work. I mean, it's complicated, and you never know how some federal judge is going to review it. So my only suggestion, I like everything that you said, but I think maybe to give you the guidance from the council. I don't know, we've been without our sign ordinance since the summertime. We haven't even formed the committee yet. We'd probably be looking at 2 to 3 months down the road. That takes us into next year, and then several more months before we probably can bring anything to an ordinance. In the meantime, we're kind of floating right now with no ordinance really. So I do think that the idea of breaking it between commercial and residential is great. That's the way the Supreme Court law seems to break out. So I think it'll be good. My only suggestion would be maybe we as a council tell you, I think we're concerned, I might have some different concerns being a lawyer, but everybody else their concerns are going to be the aesthetics and, the keeping the character of our residential neighborhood. And I think we can give you ideas to that, and maybe it might be more cost efficient to just have you draft it, because I could just see a committee getting very bogged down in this. I could see us getting bogged down in if we started debating it. So I just think it's a very complex topic for individuals to pick up. We start getting at levels of scrutiny. A lot of attorneys don't even understand it. So,
Mayor,
yes.
Council, I would recommend that we have the city attorney do it. It's too complex, too many what ifs, and even a code review committee would struggle with this. And the legalities of it. And in the end, Fred would be doing it anyway, because, they'd bring something to him and say, will this work? So, but that's up to the council, but that's what I would recommend.
Marv?
I'd agree with Lynn. Just from that response we got from one resident was enough for me, if I was on a code committee, just to recommend that Fred handled it.
Robin's nodding her head. Dave's nodding her head. I think we have consensus. Does anybody wish to speak against having Fred do this? I mean, we can give Fred guidance in terms of, but I think, Fred, you probably know it just by hanging out here for the last year and a half, that we valued the look of our city. Our strategic plan pretty much says it all, that, we value the aesthetics, the city, and safety, and this, that, and the other thing. So, using that, glean together you and I have discussed a couple key constitutional cases, and do your best. I mean, I just want to say, and I know Fred's going to do an excellent job, but there's no guarantee on this, folks. I mean, we'll put the best law out there, but if some attorney wants to challenge it, or some citizen wants to challenge it with a constitutional challenge, they can do it. Our key is to try and make it as good as we possibly can, but it's like a contract. There's always a way of challenging it if somebody really wants to. So, Fred?
I'll add one more thing. A lot of the cities are doing exactly what y'all talked about, which is that you value your aesthetics, and that is really one of the most important things to you. Having said that, there are cases, and the cities have implemented the cases, where they narrowly tailor the regulation in order to, of course, protect the life safety of people within the city, and they narrowly tailor it to ensure that the aesthetics are kept intact and those are not diminished. And from a constitutional standpoint, that's the, I won't say thread the needle, but basically that's what you're trying to do, is thread the needle and have a nexus between the reason for narrowly tailoring it and the regulation. So I would absolutely have that in mind. If you read over the stuff that I redlined, you'll see that that's a lot of what I did. And again, that's some of that's the hard work of lawyers from another city that have put that together. But the area that I was probably the most concerned about and I wanted direction on is the distinction between commercial and non-commercial, because if you're making that distinction, then you're largely taking out the issues or a lot of the issues related to free speech, and that is a really important thing. You'd simply delete in its entirety the political signs provision that you now have, and instead you would that would fall into the category of non-commercial, and that's the distinction I was most concerned about and was not comfortable going ahead and working on until I got some further direction from y'all. So I have some further direction, so I'll continue working on it now.
Okay. Not to put a deadline on it or anything like that, time frame?
He told me he'd have it tomorrow morning.
Well, he's got a long night ahead of him. It looks like he's in New Orleans, so he's not going to be doing anything tonight. Next month, maybe, Fred? Is that a possibility for the work session? Or tomorrow, whatever. You take your choice. Next month or tomorrow. You got to pick one, or I'll pick it for you. And I might go with Lynn. I'll give you next month. How's that?
I think he's stuck on a smile.
Is that doable? I don't want to rush you. This is important.
Oh.
He just hung up on us. Now he's muted himself. Put your mute off.
You're mute.
You're mute.
It cut out from frozen. I missed the last 30 seconds.
I said, do you want to, I was asking for a time frame. Lynn said you'd have it for tomorrow, so I gave you till next month. So I said, which one do you want to pick? And you just smiled at us. So
I like your suggestion better.
I bet you did. Let me ask you this. Is a month reasonable? I mean, this is complex stuff. I don't want to rush a draft. We want to get this right, but I also would like to get some sign ordinance back on our books.
Fully understand. Yes, that's reasonable. And if it turns out that I'm not making the progress I'd like, I will keep you abreast of where I am.
Fair enough. Anybody else have anything? I don't see any hands from the citizens, Patty. So I'm going to move on then. We're in general business. So does anyone have any items that are not on the agenda? Dave?
There we go. Okay, so I've noticed that we're starting to get sailboats. I've seen all of our neighbors getting them. I seem to recall that the city of Clearwater Beach announced that they were doing something about it. Now, Lynn, I recall you had told us that there was nothing we could do about it according to maritime laws or something like that. But apparently what the city of Clearwater is doing, and I saw in a news article, and I apologize, I've not been able to find the article, but apparently what they're doing is whenever they see these ships or the boats show up and they're just anchored out, no one's around them, they actually go out and they tag them. And if someone doesn't respond within so many days, they literally tow them off. I don't know where they're taking them, don't know what they're doing with them, but apparently they have figured out some way to curb the abandoned boats in their harbor. So does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Dave, I'm familiar a little bit with Madeira Beach, because Madeira Beach passed an ordinance, I'm going to say maybe last year around this time, which I think got a lot of boats to leave Madeira Beach. And again, I haven't read their ordinance, but they had this problem where people were camping on the boats, parking the boats, and they were like, let's get it out of our city. And they effectively did it. I don't know if it worked for them, but I know the boats left. So we might want to take a look at what Madeira Beach has done.
This is something that I feel strongly about getting ahead of before we become another, ocean parking lot.
Yeah, Dave, I'll get with Clearwater and Madeira and see what they're doing.
I'm sorry, Marv, after Lynn.
Yeah, I'm done. I'll get with them and see what they're doing.
Jody brought something up about that, and she said in Key West, so she must be familiar with Key West, that they do an inspection or have an ordinance to where they have to pump out that boat every so many days. I don't know how they got away with it, if there is a porta potty on it or whatever, and it has to be, if it has an engine in it, it has to run. It has to have another mode of moving outside a sail for safe harbor. So there was a few things that she brought up and mentioned Key West. So I don't know if they have an ordinance down there that we could look at.
Dave, I agree with you. I think we should get ahead of this, because if Madeira's pushed them out and Clearwater's pushing them out, they're going to seek the path of least resistance, and it'll be us because we've got a beautiful surroundings.
If you look at Bellaire Bluff, it's already happening to them.
Yep.
That's been going on there for a few years already.
Okay. That's all I had.
Thanks. Lynn, you'll get back to us then on that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lynn, one question for you. Anything going on with the seawall over on Bayshore?
Yeah, they're waiting for the materials. They've contacted us and told us that they're due in any day now, so I would expect very shortly. And I did get a call from Mrs. Shang telling me that they were waiting on the materials, and from the enterprise.
Any damage from either neighbor so far?
No, nothing. Mm-mm. Well, and I think that's because Mr. Schroeder's seawall is brand new, and it didn't even reach to his seam. So I think that's one side. The other side hasn't came down any further than it was, but they had to order some special panels because of the fall in.
Okay. Anything from Rube?
I spoke to him actually today, and he's working on it, and he's going to give us some feedback. I told him I want it sooner than later, so he knows we're very interested. One thing I want to mention though to the council, it's been another 2 weeks. We still have no applications for code enforcement, and I've had a couple discussions with a couple of you. I don't know what the council's thought is. Maybe we ask the planning board to do it. Just a thought. I don't know what the council's thought is, because
you meant code review committee, right, Lynn?
Yeah,
just code enforcement.
Code review. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
No, just a thought. Let's see if we can get the planning board to do it. I mean, they're established, and I'll talk to the chairman if the council's okay with that, and because currently
nothing. Huh?
No.
I'm okay with it. Everyone else, do we have consensus here?
I'm good with it, Lynn.
Everybody's good. Glenn?
Yeah, I agree with that. Is take advantage of a standing board and maybe supplement them with the people who are still willing to sit on a committee or something.
Yeah,
it
couple
would be
people.
nice to have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to have some resident input like that.
We'll also have to see if there's interest from I think, I don't know if we approved up to 2 people from council, but if there's interest from council, make that known. And, I think we have to, a nomination process, but we'll vote on it and get people on that committee. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea, Lynn. They did a really good job with the last analysis that they did. So, maybe if they can help us out, that would be great. And they don't have to go crazy. So it's just a
no.
Really,
I have a list of things and some areas we want to look at, the seawalls and things of that nature. And if you've got any, as a council, any specific code areas that you want me to look into, I've got, of course, the seawalls and short-term, there's some things that we need to take out because it still talks about a police department in 94. It's just some embellishments there, but there's some other areas. And I think Vice Mayor sent me a draft charter already, and I'm going to get with him about, we'll add some other code areas. So if any of you have any code areas that you want us to look at, because we don't want them to look at the whole code, we want them to look at some specific areas, just email me and we'll add it to it. But I'll talk to the chairman here this week and see what we can work out.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any other general business? Would everybody like to adjourn? That we always have consensus on. Patty, just to be certain here, the next meeting, unless there's some major change from the governor, is going to be in person. We're going to do the social distancing thing, all right? And we're going to, Lynn, we're still requiring masks to be worn in the building?
Yep,
yes. Okay, so masks will be worn. We'll keep the social distancing. And it looks though like it will be in person. And Lynn, you promised that this is going to be a quick meeting because they have to set up for the election. So I'm holding you to it. I didn't forget that.
Well, we do have to make it a quick meeting, and I'm going to limit. The only major thing we have coming up is the franchise agreement for Duke, which is an ordinance, and we have to have 2 readings. And that's, so we'll do that the meeting in November and then December. And if there's any other peripheral stuff, it'll be minor because we want to try to limit it so they can get in. Unless you want to have a long meeting.
You got that on recording, right, Patty? Marv, go ahead.
Oh, Lynn, with this Duke Energy deal, what can we ask them? Can we force them to upgrade the system? Is there anything that we can add in there to help out things, or?
In the franchise agreement, I don't think you're going to get too much.
Do anything at that? No.
No. It's basically what they are is what they pay us, the 6%, and
right.
and they'd want some of that taken back. I've sent it to Fred. He's looked at it, so we'll be sending you a clean copy. What I'll probably do is send that out to you early but it'll be part of the agenda here in the next week or so.
Okay, good. And that's what, November 2nd, Patty, is the meeting?
November 2nd?
Yeah, I think it's the 2nd, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's just double check.
Just double check.
Look for my calendar and I can't find it.
Yes, it's November 2nd.
November 2nd, yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much. Everyone have a good night. The meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you on November 2nd, okay?
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.